And what they treat. Well, to tell us all about the work of a dermatologist is the president of the Dermatology Association of Jamaica, Dr. Jonathan Ho. Dr. Ho, morning. Welcome to Smile. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Please call me Jonathan.
Yeah, and tell him how many years ago.
Prep school. So we're contemporaries.
Doctor, the doctor will come in and say, I've been watching you from a childhood, so you know me not talk to him no more. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
Who's a dermatologist?
Good question. So dermatologists are doctors, physicians, who, after medical school and their internship have gone on to do a minimum of 3 years of additional specialist training in order to diagnose and treat like all conditions of the skin, but also the hair and the nails. So I think, sometimes we don't remember that the hair and the nails, and even like the mouth, like lips and the front part of the mouth, falls into dermatology.
Oh, I didn't know that, because sometimes you just say he's a skin doctor.
Skin doctor.
Yeah.
And even like skin like that we don't think about, like hidden skin, so like genital skin, or like that's what we will do.
But what would you do for the nails though?
Yeah, so I think for us, like a lot of the nail conditions, we can kind of break them into like infections, so like, fungal infections, but also tumors, or even like rashes can involve.
Tumors in your nail?
You can, and like growth. Most of them, thankfully, are like not dangerous.
Right.
But actually, just, just to bring it up, the most common place that persons who are like Afro-Caribbean get like skin tumors, even skin cancers, are palm soles and under the nails.
Oh,
so it's important, Oh,
that's fantastic. Yeah. So you deal with stuff like acne?
Yeah, so that's one part of what we do. So if you think about like your dermatologist, anything on the skin, so definitely like more common things like acne, eczema, hair loss, but also more complex things. So actually my main job, like I'm a hospital dermatologist, so primarily like patients who have like bad drug rashes, or they have like lupus with skin findings. And then of course, obviously we do the cosmetic stuff and the surgical stuff as well for the skin.
You have a lot of you guys in Jamaica?
Good question. They're just north of 25 of us in Jamaica, but we are expanding so we have a residency training program now. And so each year, 2 new dermatologists will be added to Jamaica and the region, really.
Yeah. Is that because people don't need to see dermatologists?
Derm, as the skin, is the largest organ. Everybody has skin. So at some point in our lives, all of us will have something wrong with the skin. I think the reason that there are so few of us is that in general, it's been very hard to get training because we didn't have a local training program until 2019. And then before that, you had to go away, and it's very expensive. And just, many persons, when they go, once they get in, they don't necessarily come back home.
Yeah, one of my best friends has terrible eczema.
Yes.
What would cause that?
So different kinds of eczema. So the most common kind is probably a type that you kind of inherit. Like you inherit a little bit of genes that make your skin not retain water as well as it should, and then you have all the environmental stuff piled on top of that, and then it manifests as eczema. And most people outgrow their eczema, but some people into their adulthood, like it continues, and those are the patients who, just regular creams and, corticosteroids like hydrocortisone will not help, and they end up really needing to see a dermatologist for more complex care.
Yeah, we mentioned, eczema,
yes.
Psoriasis,
yeah.
And I said acne. What other things I would need to see a dermatologist for?
Good question. So we deal with anything inflammatory in the skin, and what I mean by that is anything that's causing itching, rash, color change, like vitiligo, for example. And people say, oh, there's no treatment for vitiligo. There is treatment for vitiligo. It's hard, but that's what we do,
Sorry to jump in, but when you treat it, you get rid of it or you control it?
So good question. Again, sometimes what we do is control it, but nowadays, 2024, like there are approved treatments to repigment vitiligo, to get the pigment back. It's not 100% of the time, but we should no longer be saying to patients, you're just gonna have to live with this. There are treatments for it that work to bring the color back,
Wow. This might be just a dunce question, but is the population, do we have a lot of skin problems in the population? And then does the fact that we live in such a warm climate hurt in any way? Yeah.
So first question, yes, we absolutely do have a lot of skin disease. And, again, in the hospital clinics, I work at University Hospital, and we see a lot of a public practice. some of the patients who are coming, their skin disease is so extensive just because access to care has been a little bit hard. And so by the time they come to these specialist clinics, like skin diseases, outrageous, like things that you would see in the textbooks, 10, 20 years ago in other countries, we're still seeing here.
Wow.
And I think that really has to do with access to care and just knowledge who to go to. If I have this problem, who will deal with this? But in terms of the other question, I do think living in the tropics has its own. If you were like very fair-skinned living in the tropics, skin cancer would really be a major issue. We still see skin cancer here, but it's not as frequently sun-related. We don't know why, but again, palm soles, like that's kind of where our people get their skin cancers. And so just while I'm here, any changing spot on the palm sole or under the nail, changing color, changing size, absolutely see a dermatologist. But the heat does its own thing, right? So, we get a lot of heat-related rashes, sweating under the folds, and you get like fungal infections there, or sometimes just the heat makes our acne worse.
Yeah.
So we have our own nuances, even if it's not all sun-related.
Yeah, you mentioned that some of the reasons is because of lack of access to care. What about caring? Are we first world as far as...
Good question.
As far as getting
what we
rid of?
have.
Yeah.
I would say that Jamaica stars in the ascendancy as it relates to dermatology. So we are not quite first world, but we do have access to a large number of pretty modern and effective medications. I think one of the balances, of course, is always going to be the cost of some of these newer drugs. But they're here. And in terms of devices, because we also work a lot with devices that harness the power of energy and light, so like lasers and what we call phototherapy, where we use ultraviolet light.
Yeah.
We have it. And we actually have some of these in the public system as well at very little cost.
Yeah. We had a quick chat before we came on. I diagnosed myself, and I'm being very serious here, and said I have eczema, but only in my right ear.
Yes.
No, it's very flaky. I actually don't know if it's eczema.
Right.
I just said that because of what I see and what I read.
Yes.
If that is so,
Yes.
why would it just be in one spot and just one ear, if that is so?
Good question. Again, lots of good questions this morning.
Thank you,
I hope
sir.
I can answer. But the reality is that our skin has, in a sense, a mind of its own. And so where skin conditions manifest sometimes seem patterned or unique or unusual. And so that's one of the things that we teach the residents, that the skin pattern tells you something. Where it's occurring is giving us a clue. So in one ear, we would have to think about something, one, coming in contact with the air, which is why I was asking you, is that the ear that you wear?
And I don't, because I wear it on the other
on
side.
the other side. And then sometimes conditions like psoriasis can start off and can stay for many years just in one area. And actually the ear is one such area. And a more common condition is something called seborrheic dermatitis, which is basically a type of eczema that likes the oil-rich areas. And actually inside of our ear does have like a number of oil glands. So those are some possible explanations.
What's the difference between ectodermal and psoriasis?
So similar in the sense that we consider them inflammatory skin diseases. Psoriasis, microscopically under the microscope, has a very specific look, and it presents with very chronic, so long-lasting lesions that affect certain parts of the body, so the knees, the elbows, and most importantly, is associated with internal disease, so joint disease, so arthritis, as well as an increased risk for diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease.
Yeah. In preparing for this, I noticed that my producer gave me a question, and it was the difference between a dermatologist and an esthetician.
Okay, so a part of our team, so estheticians are a valuable part of a lot of derm practices, but I think the major difference is that we're medical doctors, so the scope of what we do, prescribing, injecting, is different. And I think probably another distinction is the difference between a dermatologist and a physician, a doctor, who has done a little extra work in aesthetic medicine.
Okay.
So we're fully trained in dermatology. Those persons are a little bit trained. And so always ask, is your dermatologist a full member of the Dermatology Association of Jamaica?
Final question, Dr. Jonathan. What was the fascination with you with dermatology?
So it started off accidentally, just got married, and I was like, what shall I do where I'll have a nice life? And I said, let me spend 6 months on the derm service. And once I got there, the disease just fascinated me, the patients. We think of patients with cancer being affected by their quality of life, but if you have something everybody can see, your quality of life is markedly affected. And I just love being able to influence and address that.
Oh, fantastic, and very well explained. Thank you. Great to meet you.
Pleasure.
A prep school colleague.
Football player.
40 years later. He's the president of the Dermatology Association of Jamaica, Dr. Jonathan Ho. 10 minutes to your health. We'll do it again next Thursday. All right, they're testing my knowledge of these words here. So when we come back, we sample talon zepartis dulce de leche. It's a cream spread. I feel we get it right, you know. It's so come.